The notification pinged at 3:47 a.m., cutting through the silence like a blade. I'd been lying awake for hours, staring at the ceiling of our Victorian bedroom, listening to Alicia's absence echo through the house. She'd been gone for 3 days now, claiming she needed space to think after our latest fight about money. The text was simple, brutal. "I'm leaving you. Good luck surviving." I stared at the glowing screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to beg, to grovel, to promise I'd change. Instead, I typed back, "You too." What I didn't know yet was that Alicia had just made the biggest mistake of her life. My phone buzzed again, bank alert. Our joint checking account showed a balance of negative $847. Every penny, gone. Transferred out yesterday while I was pulling a double shift at Romano's restaurant, where I managed the dinner rush and dealt with entitled customers who complained about everything from the temperature of their soup to the color of the napkins. I laughed, actually laughed out loud in that empty bedroom, because Alicia, in her infinite wisdom, had drained what she thought was our main account. What she didn't realize was that she'd cleaned out the business line of credit, the one that was solely in her name because of some tax advantage her accountant friend had recommended 2 years ago. $80,000 of debt. All hers. The bank called her at 6:23 a.m. I know because she immediately called me, screaming, "What did you do?" she shrieked through the phone. "The bank says I owe $80,000. "I didn't do anything," I said, sipping my coffee and watching Mrs. Haskins, our nosy neighbor, pretend to water her already drowning petunias while obviously eavesdropping. "You're the one who emptied the account. Congratulations on your newfound freedom." The silence stretched long enough that I thought she'd hung up. "This is your fault," she finally whispered. "You'll pay for this." "Actually," I said, "you'll be paying for it. For about the next 20 years, if my math is right." She hung up. I finished my coffee and headed to the attic. Alicia had left in such a hurry that she'd forgotten about her old phone, the backup iPhone she'd kept just in case, but never bothered to disconnect from her accounts. It was still synced to everything: messages, photos, cloud storage. What I found there changed everything. Hundreds of text messages with someone named Dom, photos from hotel rooms I'd never seen, and one video, time-stamped Halloween night, the night she'd claimed she was out with the girls, showing my wife of 8 years doing things with a muscle-bound stranger that she hadn't done with me in months. Dominic Reyes. I recognized him now. The guy from Titan's gym downtown, the one who always wore tank tops that showed off his ridiculous biceps and drove that obnoxious red Camaro with the custom exhaust. I sat in that dusty attic, surrounded by boxes of Christmas decorations and forgotten photo albums, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not rage, not heartbreak. Something else entirely. Calculation. My phone buzzed. Text from Richard, who owned the Foundry, the dive bar where I'd been drowning my sorrows for the past 3 nights. "Heard about Alicia through the grapevine. You okay?" I typed back, "I want dirt on Dominic Reyes." All of it. Now we're talking. "Meet me at the bar tonight." Mrs. Haskins was still watering her plants when I came downstairs. She waved enthusiastically, and I could practically see the questions burning behind her thick glasses. This woman knew everyone's business before they did themselves. In a town like Millbrook, Massachusetts, gossip traveled faster than the morning coffee delivery. "Eli, dear," she called out, "I haven't seen Alicia around." "Is everything all right?" "She's taking some time to figure out her finances," I said. "You know how complicated money can get." The way her eyes lit up told me she'd be making phone calls before I reached my car. The Foundry hadn't changed in the 15 years since I'd first started drinking there. Same cracked leather bar stools, same neon beer signs casting colored shadows on the walls, same smell of cigarettes that had somehow survived the smoking ban. Richard stood behind the bar, polishing glasses with a rag that had seen better decades. "You look like hell," he said, sliding a whiskey across the scarred wood surface. Feel worse. I knocked it back, savoring the burn. What do you know about Dominic? Richard's weathered face split into a grin. Oh, this is going to be good. He leaned forward conspiratorially. Dom's been bragging to anyone who'll listen about his married conquest. Real classy guy. Says he's got her wrapped around his finger. What else? He's broke. All that gym equipment, the fancy car, the designer clothes, credit cards and borrowed money. His ex-girlfriend Tracy works at the bank. She told my cousin Beth that he's behind on everything. I felt a smile tug at my lips. Keep going. There's more. Your wife's best friend Susie? She's been covering for them, making alibis, even lending them her apartment for their little afternoon meetings. But here's the kicker. Susie's husband doesn't know she's been skipping work to play matchmaker. The whiskey was making everything clearer. How do you know all this? Because Susie can't keep her mouth shut when she's drunk. She was in here last Tuesday, 3 sheets to the wind, telling anyone who'd listen about how Alicia deserves better than some loser restaurant manager who can't even afford a decent car. That stung, but I pushed it down. What about Dom's schedule? Predictable as clockwork. Gym from 6 to 8 a.m., then his construction job until 4. Comes home, showers, hits the bars by 6. Usually ends up at Murphy's on the east side, playing pool and hitting on anything in a skirt. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. Murphy's, east side. What else? He's got a temper. Got kicked out of 3 bars last year for starting fights. And he's stupid, posts everything on social media. His Instagram is public, shows exactly where he is and when. Richard refilled my glass without being asked. What are you planning, Eli? Justice, I said, the kind the courts can't deliver. The next morning, I called in sick to Romano's and drove to Titan's gym. Not to confront anyone, not yet. Just to watch, to learn. Dominic was everything I remembered, and worse. 6'2", muscles that screamed steroid abuse, and the kind of swagger that made me want to introduce his face to a brick wall. He moved through the gym like he owned it, interrupting other people's workouts to show off, flexing in every mirror he passed. I sat in my Honda Civic across the street, feeling like a discount private investigator, and watched him load plates onto a bench press. The same hands that had been all over my wife in that hotel room video. My phone buzzed. Text from Nate, my coworker, and the closest thing I had to a tech-savvy friend. Heard about the divorce. Need any help with anything? I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, How good are you with GPS tracking? Depends. Are we talking legal or interesting? Interesting. I'll be right over. Nate arrived at my house an hour later, carrying a laptop bag and wearing a grin that made me nervous. He was 26, single, and had the kind of computer skills that probably violated several federal laws. So, he said, settling into my kitchen chair, we're talking about tracking someone's movements without their knowledge? Hypothetically. Hypothetically, if someone had access to a person's car while it was parked at, say, a gym, they could attach a small GPS device that would broadcast location data to a smartphone app. Hypothetically, where would someone get such a device? Amazon. $49.99. Next day, delivery. I was starting to like this plan. That evening, I returned to the foundry. Word had apparently spread about Alicia leaving because I got more attention than usual. Sympathetic looks from some, curious stares from others. Small towns were like that. Everyone knew your business and everyone had an opinion. Susie was there, holding court at a corner table with 2 other women I recognized from Alicia's social circle. She was loud, animated, and clearly drunk. I told her months ago she deserved better, Susie was saying. Eli's a nice guy, but he's got no ambition, still managing that little restaurant while she's climbing the corporate ladder at her firm. I ordered another whiskey and moved closer, pretending to check my phone. Dom's got his own business, one of the other women said. Construction, right? He's got big plans, Susie nodded. Wants to expand, maybe start his own gym. He's got vision, you know? Not like some people who are content to stay stuck in the same rut forever. The other woman, I recognized her as Karen from the bank, leaned in. But isn't he married too? Separated, Susie said quickly. Has been for months. It's practically over. That was interesting. I pulled out my phone and did a quick Facebook search. Dominic's relationship status still showed married, and his wife had posted photos of them together just 2 weeks ago. I finished my drink and walked over to their table. Ladies, I said, putting on my best fake smile. Mind if I join you? The conversation died instantly. Susie's face flushed red. Eli, she stammered. We were just talking about my failed marriage? I pulled out an empty chair. Don't let me stop you. I'm sure you have lots of insights. Karen and the third woman, I think her name was Michelle, suddenly found reasons to leave. Susie was stuck. Look, I'm sorry about what happened, she said, but maybe this is for the best. You and Alicia, you weren't happy. You're right, I said. We weren't. But I'm curious about something. You said Dom's separated from his wife? Well, it's complicated. I bet it is. I pulled out my phone and showed her Dom's Facebook page. Because according to this, he took his wife to dinner last Saturday. Same night he was supposedly with Alicia at that hotel in Springfield. Susie's eyes widened. How did you... The same way I know you've been using your apartment for their meetings while your husband thinks you're at work. I leaned back in my chair. The same way I know Alicia drained our business credit line by mistake and is now $80,000 in debt. The color drained from her face. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to tell me everything. Every lie you told, every alibi you made up, every detail about their little affair. And in return, I won't tell your husband that you've been skipping work to play Cupid. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're not... This isn't like you. Maybe you never really knew me, I said. So, shall we start with how long this has been going on? The GPS tracker arrived Wednesday morning, along with my newfound sense of purpose. Nate had included detailed instructions and a burner phone app that would show Dom's location in real time. All I needed was 30 seconds alone with his car. That opportunity came Thursday evening. Dom's schedule was exactly as Richard had described. Gym until 8, then Murphy's bar until closing. I waited in the parking lot at Murphy's until I saw the red Camaro pull in, then gave him 10 minutes to get settled at the bar before making my move. The tracker was smaller than I'd expected, about the size of a matchbox. It attached magnetically under the rear bumper, hidden behind the license plate. 30 seconds later, I was back in my Honda, watching Dom's location appear as a blue dot on my phone screen. Perfect. But tracking him was just the beginning. I had bigger plans. Friday night, I followed the blue dot to a hotel on the outskirts of town, the same chain where those photos on Alicia's phone had been taken. I parked across the street and waited. Alicia's silver BMW arrived 20 minutes later. I sat there watching the windows of room 237, feeling something cold and calculating settle deeper into my chest. They thought they were so clever, so careful. They had no idea I was 3 steps ahead. My phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Haskins. Saw Alicia's car at the Riverside Hotel tonight. Thought you should know. I smiled and typed back, "Thank you." Very helpful. The old woman was turning out to be a valuable asset. Saturday morning, I put the next phase of my plan into action. While Dom was at the gym, I drove to his apartment complex, a rundown place called Pine Ridge that was neither pine-covered nor ridge-adjacent. His Camaro was parked in its usual spot. I had a key made from a photo I'd taken of his car key when he'd left it on the bar at Murphy's. Nate had recommended a locksmith who didn't ask too many questions. The key worked perfectly. I didn't take anything, didn't damage anything. I just left a little note on his dashboard. Nice car. Would hate to see something happen to it. Then I waited. The call came at 11:47 a.m. Dom's voice was shaky, trying to sound tough but failing. "Is this Eli Foster?" "Speaking. You need to stay away from me and my car, man. I'm warning you. I have no idea what you're talking about," I said calmly. "Is there a problem?" "Don't play dumb. I know it was you. Dom, right? You're the guy who's been sleeping with my wife." I let the silence stretch. "I think maybe you're feeling guilty about something. Paranoid. It happens when you're doing things you shouldn't be doing." "You're crazy." "Maybe. But I'm not the one calling random people making threats." I hung up. Phase 1. Complete. Sunday evening, Alicia showed up at my door. She looked tired, stressed, and angrier than I'd ever seen her. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house. "About your debt problem?" I asked, closing the door behind her. "Or about Dom?" She spun around. "How do you know about Dom?" "Small town. People talk." I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a beer. "Want one?" "Oh, wait. You don't live here anymore." "Eli, listen to me. This whole thing has gotten out of hand. The money, the separation. Maybe we can work something out." "Work something out?" I laughed. "You mean like how you worked things out with your boyfriend while I was pulling double shifts to pay for this house?" Her face flushed. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. I've seen the photos, Alicia, the videos, the hotel receipts." I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot from her old device. Halloween night. Very creative costume choice, by the way. She lunged for the phone, but I pulled it back. "How did you get those? Does it matter? The question is, what are we going to do about it?" She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You wanted out of this marriage? Fine. But you don't get to destroy my life on your way out the door. You never meant to get caught. There's a difference." I sat across from her. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to figure out how to pay back that $80,000 without involving me. You're going to stop telling people I was a bad husband. And you're going to leave me alone. And if I don't?" I smiled. "Then everyone in town gets to see just how creative you really are." She stared at me for a long moment. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I've just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not." After she left, I called Richard. "How'd you like to host a little party at the Foundry next weekend?" I asked. "What kind of party?" "The kind where everyone gets to see the real Alicia Foster." He chuckled. "I'll start making calls." Monday brought unexpected developments. Mrs. Haskins appeared at my door at 7 a.m., clutching a casserole dish and practically vibrating with excitement. "Eli, dear, I have news," she whispered, glancing around as if the FBI might be listening. "About your situation." I invited her in, curious about what the town's information network had uncovered. "I was at the grocery store yesterday," she began, settling into my kitchen chair, "and I overheard Susie talking to that Jenkins woman from the bank. Apparently, Dominic's been asking around about loans. Big ones." "How big?" $50,000. Says he needs it for a business investment, but Jenkins thinks he's in some kind of trouble." "Interesting." I poured Mrs. Haskins coffee and encouraged her to continue. "There's more. My neighbor's daughter works at the hotel where they've been meeting. She says they've been arguing lately. Loud arguments. Something about money and promises. The old woman was a gold mine of information." "One more thing," she said, leaning forward conspiratorially. "I think someone's been watching your house. Black pickup truck, parked down the street at odd hours. Thought you should know. That was concerning." I thanked Mrs. Haskins and walked her to the door, then immediately called Nate. "I need you to come over, now." He arrived within the hour, bringing his laptop and a concerned expression. "Someone's been surveillance on me," I explained. "Black pickup truck. Can you help me figure out who? Already on it, he said, pulling up traffic camera footage on his computer. I've been monitoring the street cams around your neighborhood since this whole thing started. Figured you might need backup. The footage showed a black Ford F-150, license plate clearly visible. Nate ran it through a database I was pretty sure he wasn't supposed to have access to. Registered to Michael Reyes, he said. Any relation to your friend Dom? Brother, probably. This is escalating faster than I expected. Want me to have a conversation with him? I considered it. No, let's use this to our advantage. If they're watching me, they're not paying attention to what's happening to them. That evening, I drove to Titan's gym again. Dom was there, as predictable as sunrise, but he looked different, nervous. He kept checking his phone, glancing toward the windows, jumping at every unexpected sound. Good. Fear was exactly what I wanted. I waited until he finished his workout and headed to the parking lot. As he approached his Camaro, I stepped out of the shadows. Nice evening for a drive? I said casually. He spun around, his face a mixture of anger and fear. What do you want? Just wanted to see how you're doing. Heard you've been having some financial troubles. Stay away from me, man. I'm warning you. Or what? You'll have your brother follow me around in his pickup truck? I smiled. Black Ford, license plate BRZ4471. Tell Mike he needs to work on his surveillance skills. Dom's face went pale. How did you... I know lots of things, Dom. Like how you told Alicia you were going to leave your wife for her. How you promised to help her start over somewhere new. How you convinced her to take that money. I stepped closer. But here's the thing, you're not leaving your wife, are you? You can't afford to. And now Alicia's stuck with 80 grand in debt and a boyfriend who's too broke to help her. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of his wife's Facebook page. Your wife posted this an hour ago. Something about planning a romantic anniversary dinner next weekend. Doesn't sound like someone who's about to be divorced. Dom stared at the screen, his jaw working silently. Here's what I think happened, I continued. You saw an opportunity with Alicia. Married woman, good job, access to money. You figured you could string her along, maybe get her to finance your little business dreams. But you never planned to actually leave your wife, did you? You're crazy. Maybe. But I'm not the one who's about to lose everything. I pocketed my phone. See, the thing about small towns is that secrets don't stay secret for long. And when people find out what you've been doing, to your wife, to Alicia, to me, well, let's just say your reputation in this town is going to be worth about as much as that overpriced car. I turned to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Dom? You might want to check your tires. Looked a little low when I walked by. They weren't low, but I wanted him to spend the next hour obsessively checking them anyway. The psychological pressure was working exactly as planned. Tuesday brought a call from Alicia. She sounded desperate. Eli, we need to meet. There are things you don't understand. Such as? About Dom. About what really happened with the money. It's not what you think. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, the old mill district on the edge of town. It was abandoned, private, and had the kind of dramatic atmosphere that seemed appropriate for whatever confrontation was coming. I arrived early and hid my car behind the old brick buildings. The mill had been closed for 20 years, leaving behind a maze of empty structures and rusted machinery. Perfect for a private conversation. Alicia's BMW pulled up at exactly 8 p.m., but she wasn't alone. Dom got out of the passenger side, looking around nervously. They were arguing before they even reached the agreed-upon meeting spot. This is a bad idea, Dom was saying. He's not going to listen to reason. We have to try, Alicia replied. The bank called again today. They want a payment plan by Friday or they're starting legal proceedings. I stepped out from behind a concrete pillar and both of them jumped. Legal proceedings, I said. That sounds serious. Eli, Alicia began. "We need to talk about this like adults." "Adults don't usually bring their boyfriends to marriage counseling," I replied. "But I'm listening." Dom stepped forward, trying to look intimidating. "Look, man, this whole thing has gotten out of hand. Maybe we can work out some kind of arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" "I've got some money coming in," he said. "A big construction job. I could help Alicia pay back some of what she owes." I laughed. "You mean the $50,000 you've been trying to borrow from every bank in town?" "That money?" His face went red. "How do you—" "I told you, I know things. Like how you've been lying to Alicia about leaving your wife. Like how you convinced her to take that money by promising to help her start over. Like how you've been playing both sides, hoping to come out ahead." Alicia stared at Dom. "Is that true?" "Baby, it's complicated." "Is it true?" she demanded. Dom's silence was answer enough. "So," I said, "now that we're all being honest, let's talk about what happens next." The confrontation at the mill was just the beginning. What happened next exceeded even my expectations. Alicia turned on Dom with a fury I'd never seen before. "You lying piece of trash! You told me you were getting divorced." "I am," Dom protested. "It's just taking longer than expected. You told me you had money. You said you could help me pay back the loan. I will." "The construction job?" "What construction job?" I interrupted, enjoying the show. "The one that doesn't exist? Or the one where you got fired last week for showing up drunk?" Both of them stared at me. "Oh, you didn't know about that?" I pulled out my phone and showed them a screenshot from the local construction workers' Facebook group. Posted yesterday. "Dom Reyes, do not hire. Unreliable, drinks on the job, harassed female co-workers." Dom's face went white. "That's not— I can explain." But Alicia was already walking away, her heels clicking angrily on the concrete. "I can't believe I trusted you. I destroyed my marriage for you." "You destroyed your marriage because you're a cheater," I called after her. "Dom was just the convenient excuse." She spun around. "You bastard!" "This is all your fault." "My fault?" I laughed. "I didn't make you drain our account. I didn't make you sleep with a married loser. I didn't make you lie to everyone we know. That was all you." Dom stepped between us, trying to salvage the situation. "Look, we're all adults here. Maybe we can—" I held up a hand to stop him. "Dom, let me ask you something. Does your wife know where you are right now?" "That's none of your business." "Actually, it is." I pulled out my phone again. "Because I sent her some interesting photos about an hour ago. Hotel receipts, text messages, a few choice pictures from Alicia's phone. She should be seeing them right about now." Dom's phone started ringing. He looked at the screen and his face crumpled. "That's probably her calling," I said helpfully. "You should answer. I'm sure she has lots of questions." He declined the call, but it immediately started ringing again. "Eli," Alicia said, her voice shaking with rage, "you have no idea what you've done." "I've told the truth. Novel concept, I know. You've ruined lives. I've exposed liars. There's a difference." Dom's phone was now buzzing with text messages. His hands were shaking as he read them. She's kicking me out," he said quietly. "She's changed the locks. She says she's filing for divorce and going after everything." "Sounds familiar," I said. "Except she's probably smarter than you were. I bet she won't accidentally drain the wrong account." Alicia was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to stop pretending you're the victims here. And I want you to figure out how to clean up your own mess without dragging me down with you." Dom's phone rang again. This time he answered. "Hello?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Lisa, please, let me explain." Even from 20 feet away, I could hear his wife screaming through the phone. Dom held it away from his ear, his face a mask of despair. "She's taking the kids to her mother's," he said when the call ended. "She says she never wants to see me again." "Well," I said, "at least now you and Alicia can be together. You know, once you figure out where you're both going to live and how you're going to pay for anything." That's when Dom snapped. He came at me with a roar of rage, swinging wildly, but I'd been expecting it. I'd been in enough bar fights in my younger days to know when someone was about to lose control. I sidestepped his first punch, then landed a solid right cross to his jaw. He went down hard, his nose streaming. "Stay down," I warned. "This doesn't have to get worse." But Dom was beyond reason. He scrambled to his feet and charged again. This time I was ready with an uppercut that dropped him like a sack of concrete. Alicia was screaming, but I ignored her. I stood over Dom, who was groaning and spitting. "You want to know the difference between us?" I said. "I don't start fights I can't finish." My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Police are on their way." Someone reported a disturbance. Time to go. "Tell the cops whatever you want," I said to Alicia. "But remember, I've got photos, videos, bank records, and about 50 witnesses who've heard you both bragging about your affair. Who do you think they're going to believe?" I walked back to my car, leaving them in the ruins of the old mill with the ruins of their lives. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The next morning brought unexpected news. Mrs. Haskins was at my door again, this time with information that changed everything. "The police came to see me last night," she said, settling into her usual kitchen chair. "Asked about what I might have seen or heard. I told them the truth, that you've been nothing but a gentleman through this whole ordeal." "What did they want to know?" "About the fight at the mill. Apparently your wife and her friend claimed you attacked them unprovoked." She sniffed disapprovingly. "I told them that was nonsense. I also mentioned that I'd seen that Dominic fellow driving by your house at all hours, making threats." "Did you really see that?" She winked. "I see lots of things, dear. Sometimes I see things that haven't happened yet, if you know what I mean." I was beginning to understand why Mrs. Haskins had survived 83 years in a small town. She was tougher than she looked. "There's something else," she continued. "I heard from my friend at the bank that Alicia's been trying to get a loan modification, claiming financial hardship due to domestic abuse." That stopped me cold. Domestic abuse? She's saying you controlled the finances, that you tricked her into signing documents she didn't understand. She's painting herself as the victim. The audacity was breathtaking, but it was also dangerous. In today's climate, accusations like that could destroy a man's life even if they were completely false. I needed to end this. Decisively. "Mrs. Haskins," I said, "how would you like to help me throw a party?" The plan was simple, but devastating. Richard had agreed to host a reconciliation gathering at the foundry, ostensibly to help me and Alicia work through our differences in front of our friends and family. I'd convinced him to invite everyone, Alicia's co-workers, our old friends, even some people from the bank and the gym. What they didn't know was that I'd prepared a multimedia presentation. The party was set for Saturday night. I spent the week making final preparations, gathering evidence, and setting the stage for what would be Alicia and Dom's complete social destruction. Friday afternoon, Alicia called. "I heard about tomorrow night," she said. "Richard says you want to try to work things out." "I think it's time we cleared the air," I replied, "in front of everyone who matters. Eli, I want you to know that I never meant for things to go this far. Maybe we can find a way to move forward. Maybe we can. See you tomorrow night." She had no idea what was waiting for her. Saturday evening, the foundry was packed. Richard had done his job well. Nearly 60 people had shown up, including Alicia's parents, her co-workers, several people from the bank, and even Dom's soon-to-be ex-wife, Lisa, who'd apparently decided she wanted to see the drama unfold in person. I arrived early to set up my equipment. Nate had helped me prepare a presentation that would be visible on the bar's big screen TV. Everything was ready. Alicia arrived at 8, looking nervous but hopeful. She'd dressed up for the occasion, a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, hair and makeup perfect. She was still beautiful, I had to admit, but beauty without honesty was just an attractive lie. Dom showed up 20 minutes later, looking like he'd been sleeping in his car, which, according to my sources, he had been. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, standing up and tapping my beer bottle with a spoon, "thank you all for coming tonight. As most of you know, Alicia and I have been going through some difficulties lately. I thought it was time to set the record straight." The room fell silent. Alicia smiled nervously. "First," I continued, "I want to address the rumors that have been going around about our financial situation. It's true that there's been some confusion about our accounts." I clicked a remote, and the first slide appeared on the big screen. Bank statements showing the account transfers. As you can see, on November 1st, Alicia transferred every penny from what she thought was our joint checking account. Unfortunately, it was actually our business line of credit, which was solely in her name. She now owes the bank $80,000. Gasps from the audience. Alicia's face went pale. "But that's not the most interesting part," I continued. Click. The next slide showed hotel receipts. "These are charges from the Riverside Hotel, paid for with our credit card over the past 6 months. As you can see, they always coincide with nights when Alicia told me she was working late or out with friends." Click. Photos from the hotel room, faces blurred but bodies clearly identifiable. This is what she was actually doing. The room erupted. Alicia's mother gasped. Her father stood up, his face red with anger. Dom tried to slip toward the exit, but found his path blocked by several large men who looked less than friendly. "Wait," Alicia said, standing up. "This isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like," I said. Click. Text messages appeared on the screen, the dirty details of their affair laid out for everyone to see. But here's where it gets really interesting. Click. Messages between Dom and his wife showing he'd never had any intention of leaving her. Click. Messages between Alicia and Susie, showing how they'd planned to frame me as an abusive husband to justify the affair and the financial theft. "So you see," I said, "this was never about love or unhappiness. This was about greed, lies, and a complete lack of respect for anyone else's feelings." Alicia was crying now, but the room had no sympathy left for her. Her co-workers were staring at her with disgust. Her parents looked like they wanted to disown her on the spot. Dom finally found his voice. "This is all taken out of context." "Is it?" I clicked the remote one final time. The video from Halloween night began playing on the big screen. That's when the room exploded into chaos. Dom's wife, Lisa, threw her drink in his face. Alicia's father started shouting about family honor. Her co-workers were already whispering about how this would affect her job. The bank employees were discussing the loan fraud implications. But I wasn't done. "There's one more thing," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "Alicia has been telling people that I abused her, that I controlled our finances, that I tricked her into signing documents. She's been painting herself as the victim to try to get out of paying back the money she stole." I held up a thick folder. These are bank records going back 5 years, showing that Alicia had full access to all our accounts and made all the major financial decisions. These are emails between her and her lawyer, discussing how to maximize the narrative of financial abuse for the divorce proceedings. And these are recordings of conversations where she admits to lying about everything. "So here's what's going to happen," I continued. "Alicia is going to stop lying about me. She's going to figure out how to pay back the money she owes without involving me. And she's going to leave me alone to rebuild my life." I looked around the room at all the faces staring back at me, some shocked, some disgusted, some impressed. "As for Dom," I said, "I think his wife and his community can decide what they want to do with a man who destroys families for sport." Dom was already pushing his way toward the exit, but Lisa blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "We're going to have a very long conversation about what you owe me and the kids." I clicked off the presentation and set down the remote. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "The truth is finally out there. What you do with it is up to you." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Alicia's employer launched an investigation into her expense reports and found irregularities going back 2 years. Dom lost his remaining construction contacts as word spread about his behavior. Susie's husband filed for divorce after learning about her role in covering up the affair. But the most satisfying moment came 3 days later, when I received a certified letter from Alicia's lawyer. She was dropping all claims against me in the divorce. She was taking full responsibility for the debt, and she was moving to another state to start fresh. I sat in my kitchen, reading the letter and sipping coffee, when Mrs. Haskins knocked on the door. "I heard the good news," she said, settling into her chair with a satisfied smile. "Justice served, I'd say." "Justice," I agreed. "Sometimes it just takes a little help. What will you do now?" I looked around the house that was finally truly mine again. "I think I'll start over. Maybe open my own restaurant. I've learned a lot about people lately. What they want, what they fear, what they'll do when they think no one is watching. And what they'll do when they find out someone is," Mrs. Haskins added with a chuckle. "Exactly." 6 months later, I opened Foster's Kitchen in the renovated space where the old hardware store used to be. It became the most popular restaurant in town, partly because of the excellent food, but mostly because everyone knew the story of how I'd taken down the people who tried to destroy me. Alicia never came back to Millbrook. Dom moved away after his divorce was finalized, owing more in alimony and child support than he'd ever be able to pay. Susie lost her job and her marriage, and eventually moved in with her sister in another town. As for me, I learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure the truth comes to light, consequences are faced, and justice is served by the people who matter most. The community that has to live with the aftermath of everyone's choices. Sometimes the underdog wins not by being stronger or smarter, but by being more honest and more patient than the people trying to destroy him. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough.